Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the EIB Comedy Theatre. Today, the world-famous back-office comedy duo, Kyster and Buruts.
Hooray!
A man flying in a hot air balloon realized that he was lost. He spots a woman down below and descends.
Excuse me, can you help me? I promised a friend that I'd meet him half an hour ago, but I'm lost. Where am I?
Well, you're in a hot air balloon. You are hovering approximately 30 feet above this field. You're between 40 to 42 degrees north latitude and between 58 and 60 degrees west longitude.
Well, why thanks, but you must be working in the back office.
Yes, I do. How do you know?
Well, everything you told me is technically correct, but I have no idea what to make of it all, and the fact is that I'm still lost.
And you, my friend, you must work in front office.
Well, I do, but how come you knew that?
Well, first of all, you don't know where you are or where you're going to. You made a promise which you're not going to keep, and now you're looking to me to solve your problems. And the fact is that you are in exactly the same predicament you were in before we met. Yet somehow all the blame is now on me at the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, financial comedy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, that's the first time. That's the first time on this podcast that we've had a joke on air.
First time anything's been
funny,
funny,
yes.
Actually. We've tried, but it hasn't happened before.
So thank you very much.
We're joined today by, well, you've already heard them, Christian Kyster, who's head of the loan administration unit in the back office of the European Investment Bank, and Ildiko Buruts, who's head of contracts reviews and amendments unit, also at the European Investment Bank. Welcome to A Dictionary of Finance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when you're not in the back office doing whatever the back office does, we're going to find out all about that today. What do you do, Ildiko?
Well, I'm at home and I'm making very horrible soups for my family. I'm a terrible cook, yet I have 3 men at home to feed.
So they probably eat it in the end. If they're men, right, they'll eat anything in
With
the end.
lots of hot spices, yes.
Good. Okay, that's the cure for anything. Christian, what do you do when you're not in that back office?
Yeah. Well, I enjoy creating sort of mystery worlds with the help of Photoshop and film editing.
But you use material like everyday material that you would take photos of your family or your videos of your family, then you would edit them into something completely strange and unreal.
Yeah, exactly. So I would take my wife, for instance, or my kids, and then I would place them in a landscape that I'm creating, essentially, because you can create anything you want, really. And then, you can add fairy wings or pixie dust for the kids.
Wow.
What
do they think of it?
Well, they love it, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Will you do a picture of Allah with fairy wings and pixie dust, and we'll put it on the website?
Painful.
He'd look great. I don't think it'd work on me, but I think it'd look nice on you.
Thank you, I guess.
And if you subscribe to this podcast and get in touch with us on Twitter, then maybe we'll send you Ildiko's recipe for soup.
Absolutely.
Because you can subscribe to this. Indeed, you should subscribe to this on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else where you can get podcasts. And then episodes like this will mysteriously appear just like that, right in front of you on your phone. Allah will come bursting out of your phone every week at you with fairy dust. And then you wouldn't have to listen to find out what's going to be next week's podcast. I can tell you now it's going to be on technical assistance.
Oh, I hope we have some good jokes ready for that.
A technical assistance joke. We'll have to work on that in the meantime.
But let's get back into the back office. So what is the back office?
Well, the best is perhaps to describe it in a sort of with an analogy. So imagine you are sitting in a restaurant. You call the waiter. You're looking at the menu. You're not entirely sure what you should go for. The menu du jour.
But not the soup. Not the soup.
Not the soup.
But so you discuss with the waiter what you should go for, and you see the tartare with the egg yolk, but that's not really as interesting as you thought. You would rather have the tartare with the mayonnaise, with the capers and the marshmallows on top. Instead of the potatoes, you want the fries. Instead of the carrot soup, you want to enrich it with raspberry sauce and caramel. So the waiter is going to be a little bit uneasy. He will take note of all of that. He will try to convince you that there are other things that might be just as enticing and delicious. Mm-hmm. No, you insist. And so you go to the kitchen a little bit uneasy, or rather the waiter does. And here you have all the sounds that you hear in the kitchen, people whizzing around and the clanking of pots and pans, the poissonnier who is sharpening his knife. And in a way, you are kind of entering the world of the back office now. You have the specialists that are working in all kind of areas on the lending side. I'm talking lending now only. And so the waiter is trying to convince the chef that he has this guest who has instructed all this dish with the marshmallows and the caramel sauce and whatnot. And this is where the kitchen will adapt. So you have the poissonnier, the saucier, the potager, as they're all called, and they will come together and they will discuss how they can meet the needs of that particular guest, because they don't want to lose that star that they've worked for so hard over the past years. And this is pretty much what we are doing in a way as well. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to create a dish that pleases the guest, that is without any fault, and as perfect as possible, essentially.
And do you? So how does the interaction with the front office work, in the sense that I assume that in that example, that the waiter is sort of the front office, right? Who works directly with the client. But in a bank, do you come up with a dish and you tell the loan officers that we have this great new product, why don't you go and try to sell it to the clients? Or is it the loan officer, is it the front office who says that, I've been listening to all these clients and what they want is actually, this more of this caramel sauce, and can you just drop whatever else you're doing and just give me the caramel sauce?
Yes, I mean, what we try to do is to talk to the waiter and find out exactly what the guest would like to eat. Mm-hmm. Our preference is just to know what his likes are, whether he likes sweets or savory. So we try to go back to the root question and not and come up with a solution that best fits that particular guest. So we are not proposing actively products, but if the loan officer comes to us, if the waiter comes to us and tells us this is the problem to be solved, we will show an array of solutions and trying to do a kind of iterative process. What was exactly the question that was coming from the guest, from the borrower, and then try to fit. So usually there's a lot of back and forth going on until we find the optimal solution.
So let's stick with the food there. So when the person who's eating says, I'd like an egg white omelette with little shallots chopped very small and all that kind of thing, and it's not on the menu, the loan officer then has to figure out with you how much that's going to cost. Is that part of what the back office does then?
Well, first of all, we have to see whether we have shallots at all. We might only have onions, so another product. Is it still fine for the client or not? That we don't know. And then we go for substitutes maybe,
well,
if we can.
Let's see what the onions and shallots actually are here, because 2 weeks ago on this podcast, we had an episode on back office treasury with Francisco Castro, who was here with his rasgueado fingers playing flamenco and talking to us about what they do in the back office treasury. Now there you have, it's money there. Okay, so it's it's trading. It's more like what we think of as, let's say, a Wall Street or a City firm doing some trading. let's say that's his onions. But what about you guys? What is it in your case? Is it well? You tell me.
Well, in the end, so to put it in simple terms, it's really whatever is agreed at the front office together with the client. In the back office, we are recording those agreements and translating them into the language that the system will understand, if you will. And so it is recording transactions, which includes indeed the settlements that Francisco is also concerned with. Before, however, it gets to the recording, this is where Ildiko comes in. She reviews those agreements, i.e. the contracts, and sees whether that is an agreement with what we can actually deliver in the back office. So because ultimately we want to make sure that any of these agreements are structurally correct, and they will be factually correct in the end. So especially today, where the products, they get more and more complex and more complicated, as we want to reach deeper into the market and offer more bespoke products. Translating it into the system language, if you will, is important for the future life of the loan. So the monitoring, the reporting, and also the communication with the client. And I think that is this is what makes the role of the back office essential.
Can you give us an example of it? Not specifically a deal, but a hypothetical deal that the loan officer has agreed with the client, and which, because of a nuance that you would spot, would not work. Like, what kind of a thing are we talking about? I guess it's not that the loan officer has gone and promised an interest rate that we cannot actually deliver. What kind of a thing would it be that where you would step in and say that, sorry, we can't actually do it?
I remember you had a podcast with Christos Stoikov a couple of months ago, probably.
Yes, about quasi-equities.
Exactly. For example, this is a new product that we've been working for just a few years, and some of the structures that the loan officers have in mind might not be so easy to implement in the systems. So some of the interest rate structures, we cannot translate them one-to-one into the system. That would need Chris' team to intervene manually, which we try to avoid. So we always take time to talk through what they actually need, what's the business need behind, how we could tweak maybe the interest rate structure so that it fits the business need, but also makes Christian happy at the end, and his team and the system.
Okay. And so when Christo there is doing one of his deals with some funky new innovative company, he gets a great idea. He says, I want to do this, and he comes back to you, and then you rain on his parade. You tell him, no, we could do this or we could do that. But what kinds of things are you looking for there? If he's doing something that's quite new, how do you figure out if it can be done?
But asking lots of questions, and here I don't want to go into details about peak interest and the interest rate frequency, because you will fall off the chairs immediately. But these are the details. This is very, very, very detailed technical questions that we discuss with them. But still, the business decision is with them. So we just reflect that, for example, this solution, if we interrupt the interest rate frequency and we move from payment in kind interest to cash interest, wouldn't work from a system point of view, or would mean that we need to develop something in the system so that Chris' team can pick it up correctly.
So let's start with your team, and then we'll go to Chris and see what part of the back office you're dealing with. So contracts, reviews, and amendments. So contracts reviews presumably is
speaks itself.
Right at the start, figuring out, is this something we can do?
Yes.
Amendments, does that mean people come back later to the back office and say this contract has to be changed?
Yes, of course. Yeah, quite a few of them for various reasons.
After they're signed?
After they sign, there could be a mistake in the contract, and we have to amend, or conditions changed in the meantime in the credit aspect of the bank, so the securities need to be changed. There are all kinds of aspects that they come back to us, and then we have to amend the contract. The pricing changes, so.
It could be maybe compared to if you go to your bank, you've gotten a mortgage for your house. Turns out the situation has changed somewhat, and you need to maybe skip one payment or two, or you want to have a different structure because it fits your new income.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much the same here. We would initiate a restructuring and see how we can accommodate the new situation whilst maintaining the financial neutrality also for the bank.
What about for what they would call plain vanilla loans, like something that we do all the time? Is there a back office function also for that, or is the back office only relevant for these kinds of very tailor-made products that you were talking about? Like if I go to my bank and I ask them for a mortgage for my apartment, is there a back office function for that kind of a standard product?
Well, in fact, the back office covers everything from simple plain vanilla to the very complex ones. So in the end, there's no segregation by product type per se.
Okay. So what are some of the more kind of a routine back office functions that would be that someone needs to take care of for a very simple, ordinary everyday loan?
Yeah. Well, so it starts off with Ildiko's part,
Yes.
right? So Ildiko is reviewing the contracts, making sure everything is in line with the stipulations in the contract that are relevant for the financial clauses, and once that's done and it's signed by the client, we will, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, we come to the disbursement of the funds. So the client will receive the funds, and that is a separate unit that is doing that. Once the funds have gone out, that's where it can get really creative. It could be very simple. The client pays back at each maturity, no problem there. Or he indeed gets into trouble, and we have to adjust the loan in one way or another. This is, by the way, the unit where I come in. And if everything works well, then, and either way, whether it works well or not, we always hope to get the funds back. It's a loan in the end. And that's where there is another unit. It's a reflows unit, where the expected cash is matched with the funds that come in. So the funds are allocated. And once everything has been repaid with the interest, then the case is closed.
Is any of that automated? Is there a lot of technology involved here?
Well, technology is kind of key to and we have come a very far way in the back offices. It used to be based on telexes and communication with the client is licking the envelopes and sending them out. So we have really come a very long way, and it's a bit like it's a bit like the intelligent house, right? Intelligent home, the smart home that we have today. We want to achieve a complete integration among all the systems. The risk is that because of these new products that are propping up, that there is the notion of plain vanilla is fading more and more as the products get more creative, and so the systems need to adapt to that new world. Just like a smart home, you want to access the TV via your smartphone and switch on and off the lights. If there are external events or influences, the blinds should go down, and you should be alarmed if there's smoke in the house. And it's pretty much the same that we have here. The communication of the systems need to be such that we reduce the risk, the operational risk of notably manual entry.
In the joke that you performed so nicely in the beginning, I sensed that there was a little bit of tension between the front office and the back office. Is that only the joke, or is that something that is a tension in financial institutions in general?
I think the joke just describes the main characteristics of communication between front and back, and it's really a matter of communication. So front office assumes one thing when they tell us something, and we assume something else. So we really have to be very aware and investigate a lot. Sometimes we call ourselves detectives as well, just to find out what they really mean, what they really want, and then translate it into our own technical language.
Okay.
I think that's why the automation is so important, isn't it?
Yes.
Such
Yes.
that it is more structured, that there's no ambiguity in
Exactly.
the instructions.
Is it a different personality, a person who works in the back office compared to a front office person?
What do you think?
I worked in front office functions as well, so it helps me in my current function to think with both minds. So it helps.
It's a different mentality, perhaps, but I think also the role in the people in the back office. It's not anymore sort of a center of low cost support as one would imagine it to be. It's rather, I would say, a source of skill of people who are now sourced from all kinds of or different parts of the business, from the front, from the middle, from risk management, from the outside, such that this holistic view over the business is never lost. It is not an idea. It's not the concept of pressing the button and it lights up green, so you've done it correctly. You have to understand what you're doing. And
you have to understand in several languages. I mean, EIB is really special for back office because we have contracts in several languages and the product palette is really, really wide. So on one day you can work on a quasi-equity, on senior loan, on a bond, or a subsidized loan in different languages, English, French, German, and you're supposed to know all of them and pick them up very, very quickly. What's behind, what's in the wording, how it's shown in the system.
You mentioned earlier the analogy with the smart house, and I imagine technology is playing a big part in the various functions of a back office. Is the goal of all this to basically liquidate the back office altogether and just to make sure that whatever the front office guys agree, it just magically, automatically takes place?
Well, I would think that the auditors would like that. I don't think that will ever be possible, notably because we are, especially these days, in an environment where we are seeing more innovative products, and that is developing. And as the markets are changing, the back office has to change along with it. So yes, we try to go for as much automation as possible, but it's the exceptions and the new products that make this task very, very difficult indeed.
It sounds like, the reputation from a long time ago of the back office was that would be where the nerd would sit, pressing the buttons, making sure things added up and sending the money out and receiving the money and so on. But that now, because banking is actually so much more complicated, it actually takes experts in that role to oversee what the front office is doing, to make sure, essentially to make that part of the product that the bank is offering rather than just something that kind of makes the money come in and out.
I would say that we are providing more active support to front office. So we are there, they can reach out to us, we're there to explain, and we can think with their heads as well.
Well, thank you for allowing us to think with your heads for a little bit today. If
Thank
that's
you.
not too crazy a concept. Subscribe to this podcast, as we mentioned earlier, but we'll mention it again because our friendly marketing guy, Martin, has told us we should mention it 3 times. So you got away with only twice this time on this episode. We need to increase our subscribe asks. But that's just so that you should get this episode popping with Alar and his fairy wings out of your phone every week. Be in touch with us on Twitter so that you can tell us what you would like to hear about in the world of finance. I'm at EIBMatt, EIBMATT.
And I'm at $Tankler, ALARTANKLER.
And tune in next week. We'll have technical assistance from a Dictionary of Finance podcast by the European Investment Bank.